Hi there, my name is Nathan, and this is another episode of The Human Experience. And today I've called the episode Burden of Time. And the reason I've called it this is because I'm thinking about the impact that things have had in the past on the younger generation and the generations to come. You know, to define burden is when you cause someone hardship, worry, or distress. You know, I feel sometimes the reason we kind of call the younger generation as, you know, not having the same kind of backbone as the older generation, or this kind of concept of the younger generation being snowflakes and easily offended, is because in my mind, when I think about it now, maybe it's because they've had a lot to take on and a lot to deal with, especially in this kind of new era of technology and expectation, you know, of achievement and success. So, you know, I'm not saying this is the case for everyone. And, you know, there are people that are really kind of getting on well in life nowadays. And I know the narrative in the media is that we're all anxious and depressed and stressed. And there is a level of that. But some people are really kind of getting on well. And I say getting on well as like, yeah, if they compare themselves to other people around them, maybe not. But if they compare themselves to a few generations ago, you know, there's a lot more kind of understanding in the world, and there's a lot more kind of, yeah, for argument's sake, peace in the world. So yeah, it's almost like for the younger generation, there's a shared burden or weight that they bear, and that's of all the previous kind of things like atrocities and genocides and wars, and even like the plague and stuff like that, that has played out. And it kind of does have an effect on the current state of humanity, because they're lived through experiences from the past that, you know, if you, for argument's sake, when we talk about generational trauma and things like that, then we're kind of getting to the point where we're understanding that, yeah, maybe it's more than just the fact that you look like someone in your family or your parents or your grandparents is passed on, and that maybe the way they were living and the levels of stress and things like that, their energy can be passed on too. And if that is the case, then wow, humanity has been through a lot, and there's a lot that has been passed on. There's, you know, it's quite worrying. There's a lot of pain and suffering and cruelty that has gone on in the world, and yeah, it's a lot to handle. You know, I think of it now because I'm a fairly new dad, and I think of all the things that my son is gonna become aware of, you know, that we have done. You know, even to the point of how we've treated the environment, how we've treated the natural world and animals in it. It's quite shameful, yeah, and it doesn't leave a good feeling. It, you know, it weighs on your conscience. And, you know, as well as that, there's the way people have treated each other, manipulated each other throughout history, you know, civilizations that have come and gone. So the list just goes on, like, you know, even to the way people have kind of rewrote history for their own kind of, you know, the way they are perceived, and they're the victors. You know, we know there's more to it that meets the eye. And ultimately, I feel that day to day, people going about their business, like, get on, cooperate, collaborate, and, you know, are working together. But for whatever reason, on a global kind of scale, there seems to be these kind of fractions of people that kind of have a different agenda, maybe creating this instability, this worry, this fear. And it feeds into the state, like I say, of this current generation, because what they can do, as well as look back, is with modern science and innovations, we can look forward. And when we look forward, it's almost just as worrying. We know that with the mass extinction of plant life and animals, that, wow, it might just be us one day sat on this planet, you know, and only records will be fossils and maybe taxidermied animals that are like on display in museums. So that's kind of a sad state of affair as well. You know, when it comes to the universe, and we're aware now more of like the cycle of the universe and what's happening, people, theorize and predict that one day the universe will just maybe go to a slow death itself, and that everything will just keep expanding with the universe, get so far apart that, yeah, things will just fade out basically and cease to be, in existence or active, in a very low energy state. Again, that's quite, a dark kind of vision of the future. We know that our sun has a life cycle, and yeah, if we're stuck on this rock, like, what happens to us when the sun expands and consumes the planets around it, or then eventually just goes in on itself or whatever? Do you know what I mean? So we have this, and I feel with ancient generations, one thing they had sometimes, which was, they say this about ignorance, that they had that ignorance is bliss of not knowing what was to come, and as well, not having so many things have happened. So yeah, I don't know if people are kind of following me this with the train of thought of this burden that people bear over time. But it can even go down to the more individual and the smaller collective of families. Like, there's a family history, if certain family members have done things to disgrace the family, or have been rejected by the family and have deceived and manipulated family members, then yeah, that's another kind of thing that weighs on people. Do you know what I mean? At the minute, there's kind of a trend, which I hate to say that word about it, but there's a trend of the breakdown of families, with divorce rates, and also like loneliness and isolation. So we're tending with all these kind of modern things, of the age of information and over consuming things, and maybe knowing too much sometimes, and thinking about things too much, to like knowing, like I say, what has come before us. And the way I think we can tackle this problem is to be aware, take full kind of ownership that we as individuals are not perfect. And for all these atrocities and things that have happened, like, we can see that through whatever was happening at that time, that was just how it played out. Do you know what I mean? Like, these sides couldn't agree and they went to war. And it's kind of that mindset of what's done is done. But also to say, like, we mustn't forget certain things and we must learn from things. And therefore, as we're moving forward, it's just to say that let's kind of look back on things and use them as a kind of guide for the direction we want to go in the future. We can't take away the things that have been done, but what we can do is change our current state and our future. So for me, that gives me a lot of optimism, even when we talk about these things like AI, robotics and stuff like this, and surveillance. Like, they're all tools. It always comes back to this for me. They're tools. And much like the spear or the knife or whatever, the gun even, it can be used in different ways and for different means. Do you know what I mean? So it's how we use that tool. And for me, they can have good kind of effects and obviously bad kind of side effects as well. So we just need to work at that, and hopefully we can come out the other side better for it. So yeah, that's all I've got time for now on the human experience. I'd love to see some comments about what kind of things you were kind of appalled about from humanity. Like, what kind of things really shook you and shocked you, and what things moving forward kind of you think that we can improve on and get things right. That would be really interesting to see. So yeah, thanks for your time, guys, and I'll see you next time on the human experience.